I have an older GE profile dual oven that is flashing locked on the upper oven. We just recently replaced the control panel and board, and everything on the lower side is working properly. I took off the control panel and can see that the motor has a small metal switch tab that tells it when it is locked or not, but the tab is out of sync with the self-clean cycle. If I manual depress the tab, it shows locked steadily, even when the door itself is not locked. Is there any way to resync the motor/tab assembly? The model is JKP45BW.
Hello, thanks for letting us answer your questions. We appreciate your business. It sounds to me that the arm on the switch is bent and not running against the cam properly. If you can press the arm and make the switch signal the control, then I would check to see if it is riding on the cam properly. If you can't bend the arm to correct the problem, then I would say you need to replace the latch motor assembly, as the switch comes with the motor. Lately people have been just logging off without a rating, which affects my scorecard. If you have additional questions, use the reply button to continue. Thanks for your cooperation. Appl-Tech 41161.1516807639.
The arm seems to be working properly. It's definitely moving the arm, and it does lock the door at the far end of the cycle. Right now, I've maneuvered the locking tab, white plastic, is against the metal lock indicator tab, and it shows a steady lock state on the control panel. Is there anything I can do to unlock the oven without putting it back into the flashing locked state? Everything I've tried so far runs me in circles.
Are you saying the door says locked when it is open?
Sorry, been working on this most of the day, so probably not explaining myself very well. I'll try to explain the situation in a little more detail. The arm assembly seems to be working properly and is attached to the cam securely. As the cam rotates, there is tab that hangs down from the top that trips the metal tab on the far side to indicate a locked condition apparently. When this white plastic part is pressing it forward, the control panel shows a solid locked condition. When the cam rotates past this metal tab, usually when I start the self-cleaning cycle, the metal tab is released and the control panel starts flashing locked, but the cam is rotating the oven door locking arm to the unlocked state. So, when it is flashing locked on the control panel, it's actually unlocked, and when it is constant indicating locked, the door really is locked. I can't see anything wrong with the mechanism itself and can only guess there is some sort of sensor out of whack. Or is it possible the self-cleaning cycle is expecting the door to be locked? It isn't, so it flashes the locked indicator. So, my question is, it is now showing locked and nothing is being done. How can I get the door unlocked and actually use the oven without using the self-cleaning cycle and getting myself back into the same situation again?
There is a problem with the micro switch on the latch. It is not operating correctly. That's why the control says locked when in reality the door is unlocked. You need to replace the motor and switch assembly. Lately people have been just logging off without a rating, which affects my scorecard. If you have additional questions, use the reply button to continue. Thanks for your cooperation. Appl-Tech 41161.1859157787.
Thanks for the help, but the problem is still around, I'm afraid. I ordered the motor, installed it, and apparently it somehow reversed itself and thinks that when the two switches are in the locked position, the rotor/cam assembly actually has the door physically open. The same thing in reverse when the two switches are in the unlocked or in the process of locking or unlocking, the cam rotor has the arm moving or stopped out of the lock mode, partially or fully locked. The issue is that when I finally manage to access the switches to move one of the locks to depress the switch, then restart either bake or self-clean, the motor moves for a few seconds, then stops midstream with some clicking noises, and the flashing lock light resumes. Do you know any possible way to get the motor, rotor, and switches resynced? This is crazy stuff, but I know, it's from 1970-80 programming days. Just having a way to totally reinitialize the oven is missing as far as I know. The factory setting everything comes with these days.
It sounds like you have some wires reversed. Did you move the wires one at a time from the old switch to the new one, or did you just remove all the wires at the same time? If you have a wiring diagram, I would double-check your connection compared to the actual switch.
Yes, I saw that suggestion too. I don't have a wiring diagram for the motor unfortunately and can't find it anywhere. I did reverse the power connectors, the red tip connectors. There are 4 other connectors below it, but I'm not sure what they are for. Again, no circuit diagram to follow. I did the wires one at a time and thought I had them in the right spots. I will try again and see what happens. Okay, the rewiring check seems to have partially worked, and the cam is now synced with the switches. I have the oven unlocked, but whenever I hit self-clean it starts the cycle to lock, but the motor lock stops halfway through the process, and I get the blinking locked again. Also, if I try the bake option while it's unlocked, it also starts the motor but flashes door on the panel and begins beeping after 10 seconds or so, then shuts off completely with the blinking locked on again too. Is there a sensor on the door that's out too? The oven light goes off, but I notice that there's a metal contact plate in the upper center of each door that touches the insulation around the edge. Is that involved here? FYI, I also found the circuit diagram for the oven, which helped get the wires set properly, which shows how the motor/cam/rotor/switches work. It seems to me there's something else going on though, maybe a sensor or something, but I don't have a way of getting to those to replace them.
You still have the wiring messed up. It's all mechanical and the switches have to cut the power at the proper time to lock and unlock the latch. Without a wiring diagram, I am at a loss to tell you what to do. There might be 2 or 3 different combinations and the wrong one may short out something. Have you looked all around the oven in the drawer area maybe, for a wiring diagram? They normally put them in an envelope tape or glued to the back, or on the back of the drawer. I would take a close look unless you know you had it and lost it.
Okay, I hope the attached image shows it clearly. I'm looking at the bottom right of the diagram is scanned, or bottom left if you're reading it, which is the wiring for the upper lock motor. According to the diagram legend at the top, there is blue wire connected to the upper no connector, the yellow incoming wire from the circuit board connected to the upper COM connector. The yellow wire has a Y connector and goes then to the lower COM connector. There is an orange wire connected to the lower no connector. The gray wires listed, this is the original diagram, are actually black on the new motor and go to the power connector. The nagging question in my mind is, in looking at how the motor is mounted, I have some question. I have it wired right on the 4 connectors that are stacked on top of each other. Is the upper no/COM box actually the upper one on the unit when it's mounted? Or is it closer to the power connector on the bottom? I don't have a diagram anywhere for the motor unfortunately. Here is a picture of my current wiring. It's tilted on the side, the black circle is the locking arm attachment at the top.
Okay, looking at this picture, the outside terminals on the left side should have the jumpered yellow wires attached. The upper should jump to the lower on other switch. On the inside right side, terminals, you would put the blue and single yellow. I can't tell you what switch to put the single wires on. The schematic doesn't say upper or lower switch. If it doesn't work, just switch the single yellow and blue wires.
Okay, I have it wired and experimented with the blue and orange wires on top or bottom with the rotor in the correct spot. They indicate locked or unlocked, and it's just a matter of getting them to indicate correctly. It's blue on top, orange on bottom. The yellow cable is jumpered top to bottom. I also found a diagram of the entire latch assembly. This indicates that with the cam on top, SW number 2 is on top, SW number 1 is on bottom. Now with all that in place, I can depress SW2 and it to the unlocked state, and nothing on the control panel, and depress SW1 and hit the solid locked state on the panel. When I manage to get the rotor tabs around to the right spot and stop them, it takes several tries. They do not stop when they depress the switch but continue moving for several seconds. With it depressed, I get the correct indication and the door lock mechanism is in the right spot. However, the oven just shuts off. If I try to start it again on bake or self-clean, the motor moves a little, it goes into the flashing lock state and I'm back to square one. If I try to run bake mode with the motor tricked into being unlocked, I get a flashing door indication, the motor runs a little along with some beeping, then everything stops and shuts down with a flashing lock sign. If I try to run self-clean with it locked, it rotates the motor a little bit, stops, and flashes the door lock again. In reading the detail on the thermal sensor at the back of the oven, I have this: the thermal switch is in the lock switch circuit in the normally closed position. The switch is mounted on the rear wall of the control area. The switch opens at 216 F and closes when temperatures cool below 177 F. If the thermal switch opens during temperatures below 600 F, the bake/broil will cycle off, the lock motor will run and word lock will appear. If it closes while the motor is unlocking, cooking will resume. If the switch closes while the motor is locking, the program will cancel and only time will be on display. If the thermal switch opens during clean mode, the program is cancelled when the switch opens. Paraphrased, but that's essential info. I've apparently tested all of these modes and it looks like the thermal switch is stuck open, and/or I have a problem with the door contact somewhere in the system that makes it thinks the door is open. The light is off and locked fully but apparently isn't making contact on a switch somewhere. I'm not getting an F2 code, so the oven does not think it's over 600 F apparently, but if I'm reading the info correctly, it looks like the thermal switch is blown open. If that's the case, I don't think I personally can do anything about it, since it looks like the only way to remove/replace it is to pull the entire oven assembly out from cabinet/wall mount.
It's possible the thermal switch is open, which would immobilize the lock when the temp goes up in the self-clean cycle, so you could not open the door during self-clean. An easy test would be to just tape the wires together to simulate the thermostat being closed and see what happens.
Sorry to be dense, but which two wires? The ones on the sensor or something else? Update: tried taping the two yellow wires attached to the sensor in the back together. No change in behavior, so I guess it's not that sensor. Update 2: I noticed that the door indicator flashes when attempting to engage the bake cycle. The door is closed, light is off, and even latch is shut when going through the lock cycle. I looked inside a little further and there is a gray, brown, and white wire going to the bottom right inside the area behind the panel, which seems to go to the push and door button that's near that location on the outside when you pull the oven door open. These are labeled W4, C5, and S3 on the circuit diagram at the top left. I'm thinking something is wrong with this switch that must be ultimately preventing either of the cycles engaging. I have no idea how to get to that one.
If you have a home improvement or appliance question and want to chat with an expert now, visit justanswer.com/ythi.